Hello! So the holidays have passed and I used the spare time I had to work on my still unnamed VR combat flight sim. And I thought I'd do a devlog to motivate myself to finish some stuff. This time I wanted to talk about multiplayer. Let's get in the cockpit and join the server. The screen in the top right is a PC client flying on autopilot. The center screen is a server and the view in the bottom left is in the Oculus by Facebook by Meta Quest 2. So for now I've included the main menu in the airplane's MFDs or multifunction displays. I could say it's for immersion, but it was just the simplest way to do it. There's no lobby system yet and the game is connecting directly to my PC running the server. When you join, you're basically a ghost until you start the engine. The idea is that you'll be able to select your weapon and fuel loadout first. Let's set up the MFDs. You can see the other network player being tracked there by my targeting camera. For now we only have the MFDs, stick and throttle and gear lever. I'll at least be adding a radar warning receiver since I plan to have radar usage to be a key element of the gameplay.
Altitude.
I've added flares because I wanted to work on something visual after all the boring networking logic. They don't attract missiles yet. Besides, I only have radar guided missiles for now and flares attract infrared guided ones. I'm still hesitating whether I should add separate chaff and flare buttons for radar and IR guided missiles. We don't have a lot of buttons on the Quest controllers and I think it does require a hardware button for quick access. And that's a very sloppy 4-point roll. You can see a little Z-fighting going on the airfield here. The flight model is pretty simple and not to scale, but not arcade either. I think everything is scaled down by about a factor of 2. You still get a sense of speed, but at least not everything is a pixel in the distance. The whole arena is currently about 30 kilometers wide and long.
Altitude.
With every choice I want to choose gameplay over realism, without becoming an arcade shooter with unlimited weapons. You still have to feel as if you're controlling a complex machine. Regarding multiplayer, I hope to have 3 versus 3 missions that would require a mix of air-to-air and air-to-ground combat. For now I'm just happy to see another plane in the sky, and even that still has some issues as you'll see in a minute. For the networking I've settled on using netcode for GameObject from Unity. It's not perfect, but more flexible and quicker than other options I've tried.
Altitude.
The AMRAAM missiles work and are networked, but the damage and respawn system needs work, so you'll have to wait for the next video to see real air-to-air combat. I'm aiming for early 90s technology to fit with the visual style of the sim and add in Sidewinder and Maverick missiles. I'm not sure if laser-guided bombs or anti-radiation missiles would add to the gameplay. Let me know what you think in the comments. The idea is definitely that you can use the terrain to avoid detection, and switching off your radar will avoid triggering your opponent's radar warning receiver. Now the more I work on the sim, it seems the more needs to be done for it to be playable. But I'm still having fun and it still feels great putting myself in that low poly cockpit. Apart from the 90s sims, the main inspiration is probably the 80s movie Iron Eagle. The one thing I don't have inspiration for is the title. Unnamed VR Combat Flight Sim is not a very catchy title, so let me know if you have any suggestions. Now as I get closer here to the other player, you'll see another issue that I still need to solve. The networked airplanes are jittery. I haven't pinned down the reason for it yet, but I think it could be one of 2 things. The most obvious would be the network lag and jitter. The aircraft positions and velocities are updated 30 times a second, but there is probably some jitter on those messages causing the instantaneous jumps. A slightly less obvious cause might be the precision of those positions. Since the world is so large, the coordinates of the aircraft in the world are large numbers. Locally I fixed this by keeping the player around the world origin and shifting the world around him as he moves, but the other coordinates are still large. With the limited precision of floating point numbers being transmitted, this might cause rounding errors to creep in, causing the jitter. Anyway, stuff to debug. That's another thing. Debugging multiplayer apps is hard. I hope you like this type of video, but feel free to let me know what you want to see done differently. See you in the air.